This is a notification to Sheriff Larry Pierce of the Wayne County Sheriff's Department. That's my face in case you need to come get me. As long as I'm alive, I am going to try to get somebody to accept an 18 USC 4 notification. In this case, it's to you, Larry Pierce. I'm notifying you of multiple felonies, more than 22, because they keep rolling in. As long as I'm alive, I'll probably have more, and then I'll have my death, which will probably be by felony. So, I would say you could watch Donald Trump's video, but that's not necessary. Just list of 22 felonies in the comments. They start out with an introduction that these should be sent to the Civil Rights Division. And they should be, with the fact that a life is in danger, as explained to Mr. Trump, our president, who will not probably ever see this. And then we have 3 posts, replies, and a post and a reply that has 22 felonies. We've added other felonies, such as the base commander has requested I cease from being accusatory about his misconduct, and his Judge Advocate, Staff Judge Advocate, Lieutenant Colonel Elizabeth Sprecker's misconduct was what I think I was talking about at the time, where I was told I had to stop being accusatory. And then rather than follow through with what I think was an order from above, probably had to be a general officer that was the source of the order. They had called him at home or on holiday somewhere with his family on his personal phone and made it so urgent that he called me immediately on Monday, the holiday, Memorial Day, and was so eager to do whatever was necessary until I made it clear that I wasn't going to change. He's already, his failures go back to May 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, and on, the 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th. He basically seems to have been giving orders, but it may have been some underling for him. But whoever it is, they must be found out. If it's not him, it has to be determined. And it appears that the Staff JAG, Lieutenant Colonel Elizabeth Sprecher, was giving him advice, bad advice, not to cooperate with 18 USC 4. What is 18 USC 4? It's a provision that requires a judge or civil or military authority to be prepared to accept notice of felonies from any citizen. They don't have to do anything. Basically, let's see what that, there it is, Miss Priest. Oh, is that easy to find? Oh, golly, there it is. Simple law. If I have knowledge of the actual commission of a felony, cognizable by a court of the United States, and they're talking federal, conceals and does not as soon as possible makes the known to a judge. Well, I did. Judge Annette Turek basically violated this law, said it had nothing to do with her case except that it was the person being killed is a witness, the only witness I was allowed, because I'm not allowed to testify in Wayne County courts because I'm only a defendant. Or other person in civil or military authority. Well, the FBI won't do anything on the case. They have an open file, and they let the person who I have alleged is clearly a hostage. I don't believe they've spoken to her, and now she's in a deep coma being murdered. Isn't that nice? Isn't that nice, FBI in Greenville? It's now over 40 days and 40 nights, and I guess they still haven't even made it to Wayne County on this case, but she is called a victim by them. They just want to wait till she's dead before they investigate. 40 days and 40 nights, I believe they are accessories to the murder when it occurs, if it can be proven, and it can be, if you had a prosecutor that cared to. So back to the 22 felonies. So there's those felonies. There's a multitude of ones that maybe haven't been put in writing, but I'd like you to accept and to give notice of your acceptance, so I know that you're going forward to notify the appropriate authorities, and that is the DOJ, the Civil Rights Division, and I think you ought to call them personally and talk to the highest level person you could talk to, not some secretary, not some paralegal. They're worthless. for this purpose, you got to talk to a high-ranking lawyer in the Civil Rights Division of the DOJ in Washington, D.C. as sheriff of Wayne County. One of the people that are guilty here is a fellow who hit me as I was leaving an otherwise empty clerk's public area. The clerk, I believe, called him in to do something to me. Not exactly sure what the clerk told him, but his defense his offense as to why he had to hit me was that I was going after the clerk of court, which was an impossibility, as I told the magistrate, Alan Vickery, who didn't let that bother him. The clerk of court was behind a glass wall, was in another room that wall protects rather well from almost any human being without a lot of time spent trying to break through they're not glass, they're see-through windows. And then I'd have to go through 3 or 4 women who were at the front talking with me, and the clerk only had come in recently, so he was about 10 feet behind them, and he tried to disable me permanently with a hard slug I don't even know if it was his hardest, but it may have been, slug to my base of my spinal column, which was rather profoundly disturbing to me, since I didn't know that there was any reason for him to have been closer to me. I didn't know he was closer to me, and I certainly I didn't anticipate that I'd be physically attacked in a attempt to grievously injure me. All he had to do, if he really thought he needed to do something, was grab my arms and handcuff me behind the back, because one arm was holding on to the outside handle of the door, and the other arm was right there for him to grab. I speak with my hands. He could have grabbed the arm much more easily than he could have hit me in the spine. Now, I do believe you have a video of it, and you have clerks watching it. They'll all have a different story, but 1 or 2 of them will recognize that the guy did it without warning, never said a word until after he hit me. So I was arrested, and for 6 hours or thereabout, plus or minus an hour, I was not allowed an emergency first phone call. Someone could have died as a result of that, but your shift commander forbade his men from letting me have a phone call. There was a corporal who wanted to have me. He said, sure, you can have your call now. It was hours later, but Corporal Hardin got told otherwise, and he no longer even looked into my cell. He just walked by it when he had to do the check, because he had been ordered to violate the law and not allow me my first phone call. So you have an entire shift of men who evidently obeyed an illegal law. They typically think a regular first call should be made within 3 hours if possible. It was very possible, and there was nothing happening. It was probably a very slow day, and instead we had to shift to a new shift. And then after an hour and 23 minutes probably that they got settled in, they noticed one fellow had no showing that they had made a phone call. Well, they allowed me multiple phone calls. Everybody was in bed, and nobody picked up their phone, and the emergency continued because of your criminal conduct by your shift commander, and yes, has been following a criminal order. They don't have a right to follow an order that's criminal. And I'm afraid they're going to have to be investigated and determine whether or not at least some charges have to be brought. Probably not anything major, in that it was the shift commander who made. And then we need to find out who told the shift commander to do this. And that would be an interesting thing. But I want those felonies reported together with the 22 felonies on the page for the notification of Mr. Trump, which shows at the back, by you, Sheriff Larry Pierce. This is a personal notification. If you do not accept it, I'll presume you did not do it, and you violated the law along with others who have violated the law to date. As I mentioned, Judge Annette Turk and the FBI, and various other people that don't need to be mentioned here, but there's plenty of people who have violated the law. And that law is going to be determined what it means when you, as an authority, an officer of the court, or a sworn law enforcement agent, do not follow through. The law, let me just give you the history of the law, appears to be on the books since 1790 in a more complicated form then, and it slowly decreased down to the words having to do with judge or civil or military authority, person in civil or military authority, or I'll be guilty of misprision of a felony. Well, I've reported it. I have not, in fact, when I report it, I have often been totally stonewalled, so I have not ever had anyone accept the report. So I'm still reporting, and you have to definitely report everybody, not just your men. It's nothing to do with you being sheriff. It's that you are a civil authority who has a duty that our founders, within 2 years of George Washington being sworn in, put into law, and it's been, to the best of my knowledge, basically the law ever since. It's now 18 USC 4. I think you can see it here. It's easily found. You just put in 18 USC 4, and you'll get the Cornell website, which everybody uses to look at federal law. So do as you feel fit. I would like to have you accept this and give me notification of that acceptance. I think I should stop. So I hope you will not harm me. I had another sheriff who had 30 some odd visits he sent his deputies on to me, and I find that repugnant. 30 some odd visits within a 2-year period, some of them spending half an hour in my public business area, requiring me to take drastic action to remove them. 3 deputies that would not leave. And yes, they kept all the business away, but since I only got paid an hourly wage, it did not matter. Do as you feel fit, but if you do not follow through, I will ask the U.S. Attorney to determine if all these people who have refused have any charges against them for violating their oath of office or something else, some other thing. It's a simple law that the authorities have to follow. You can do a cover letter of any sort you want to say that you don't believe any of these are felonies, whatever you want to say, but you got to get them to them, and you got to get them fast. A life is in jeopardy. A life is in jeopardy.